Hey dudes, it's Larold. We've put out some strategies on 8-mod map farming early on in the league. One of those was nerfed, and I've been meaning to make an update to it for a little while, but I didn't actually hit the point where I ran out of tier 16.5 maps until just yesterday, so here we finally are. This strategy prints out mountains of tier 16 8-mod maps, and based on my own testing, I think the chance of a tier 16 dropping as a tier 16.5 instead is around 5%. So maybe a little bit less than getting a tier 17 map. It might be a little higher than that. It might be a little lower. I don't know. This is just my own testing. This isn't like some collaborative project where I have millions of people helping farm bajillions of maps. So with that being said, I have a couple of versions of this strategy. It is somewhat different from our previous approach, and I actually like this one quite a bit more. It generates a lot more currency if RNG is a little bit favorable to you, and it is just an absolute map printer as well. So let's get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also join our Discord, there's a link to it in the description. Alright, so let's start with a sales pitch. I did this, and then also these 9 maps here in the span of like 2 hours yesterday evening when I was feeling very tired and I was like watching TV and kind of like not even sure exactly what it was that I was doing with this strategy until maybe like 20% of the way through. I kind of like figured it out and filled up this entire quad tab with maps. So quad tabs are 24 by 24. 24 times 24 is 576 maps, and then there's 9 in here as well, so we'll add in 9. So 585 maps in the span of, I don't know, maybe 2 hours, right around there. So if I just look up originator, that is a full 24 of 1 here, and then this is, if I counted it out correctly, 9. Yeah, 9 maps here. So that would be 33 originator maps, 16.5 maps, and then what is 585 minus 33? I guess 552 regular tier 16 maps. So I did some of this just to kind of talk about the process I did here, because like I said, I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing at the very start. I did some of this as tier 16.5 maps that I had like lying around that weren't delirious or anything. They just had like good map rolls on them, more map rolls. And I did that for a while, and I farmed up a bunch of delirious tier 17s, pre-rolled delirious tier 17s, and then rolled them to have good more maps modifiers on them, qualityed it up, and ran them, and then farmed all the remainder of this. So this is a strategy that you could do in tier 16, like regular maps if you want, although that's not nearly as good, or you can do it in tier 16.5 or tier 17 maps. Kind of you can do it in either of the two ways, but I did it mostly in tier 17 maps. I would say I filled up probably like the first 3 or 4 columns in tier 16.5s and then switched over to tier 17s from there. So in terms of the value of this whole tab, not that I'm really looking to sell, like my plan wasn't to sell, it was just to farm up a bunch of tier 16.5 maps. But if I wanted to sell this, I've looked into it a bit, and non-tier 16.5, like just regular tier 16 maps that are 8-mod corrupted and also have delirious layers on them are worth roughly 20 chaos, or you could say like 10 to a divine. And so I had like 552 of those here. So even if we just wanted to kind of round down to 10 to a divine, that's 55 divines. And then 8-mod delirious tier 16.5 maps are worth roughly half a divine to a full divine each, depending on like whether you're willing to regex or whatever. So you know, we could say, what's half of 33? 16.5 plus 55. So this is like 70 divines, potentially more. If you're regexing and selling all of these maps, you might actually be able to get more than like 10 to a divine. That's kind of a low ball number. I think you might be able to get more like 20 chaos or more. So maybe we're even looking in the range of like 75 divines in the span of 2 hours, just worth of maps. So upwards of 35 to maybe even up to like 40 divines an hour. Again, with me kind of not even really know what I was doing the whole time. Now, the thing is, I'm not really looking to sell this stuff. I really was just looking to farm tier 16.5 maps and just knowing that tier 16 maps are going to be part of the deal here. So, like, if I sold all of this, maybe I would make 70 divines out of it. Maybe I would lowball it and sell it for 60 or something. Maybe I would just never get any bites. I don't know. I don't really care about that, but I think there is obviously a massive amount of profit to be made here if you really do and you're willing to kind of hustle to get that going. Like, you could definitely turn this into an upwards of 30 divine per hour strategy. All right, so now let's just take a look at the Atlas passive tree that I'm using here. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of a specific mechanic of the Settlers of Kalgur, and that is the Bismuth infusion. This is something I played around with very early on in the league and said, like, that seems really good. And then I saw some very high level strategies, you know, like fob gun stuff, taking advantage of this and thought, like, yeah, there's definitely potential to really, really get a lot of value out of this in the realm of, like, farming maps. And so this is why Bismuth is good, right? It's this node that grants magic and rare monsters additional elemental modifiers. You can make it appear pretty often in your maps, and then Bismuth Infusion gives you a 30% chance to get an extra modifier on all the monsters. So this is just a massive quantity, rarity, everything else scalar on the monsters in your maps, especially the magic monsters, but honestly, you know, the rares as well. That's why I've taken amplified artifacts in this setup, just for a little bit more Scarab dropping. So we're taking almost all of the Settlers notables. I'm not taking Refiner's Bargain, I'm not worrying about that, and I'm not taking Lost in Transit because this has a chance to convert your ore deposits into shipments, which are fun, but it does mean fewer ore deposits, and I don't actually want that. But otherwise, we're taking the rest. Like, Bismuth is fairly uncommon, so Fortune's Favor is really good. Yield upon yield just means more ore deposits. Prospector's Luck is more ore deposits. And then I'm not taking any of the rest of the nodes up here. Like, I don't want to get any increased chance to get other types of nodes. I just want Bismuth. Then on top of that, I'm taking Shrine nodes, taking all the Shrine nodes because Shrines have a tendency to add, or not a tendency, they just do add more packs of monsters and especially magic monsters, which is great, you know, synergizes very nicely with the Bismuth. And then I'm taking, because we're doing map farming, I'm taking all of the map nodes because all of these nodes, Shaping the Skies and everything that increase your chance of finding maps a tier higher, do increase the amount of regular maps you find in the course of farming because of the way that map equity works. It's a complicated thing. I'm not going to go through all of it, but you know, it just means like even though everything already drops as a tier 16, all of these little nodes, they have some diminishing returns, but they do increase the amount of maps you get. Then another thing that I think is really important is getting as much Eater of Worlds pack size as possible. You can do this with red altars. I played around with red altars. It does save you a travel point over here as well. But red altar bonuses just simply are not as good. You can get a lot of chance to double map drops out of blue altars and like a lot more than you can get out of red, and it just is significantly better. So you want all of that you can possibly get. You want as many of those blue altar monsters spawning as possible. Then, of course, we want all the quant that we can get in the center wheel here, and all the map mod effect, of course. Then we have a couple of like leftover points here. If you are farming, like you're farming up to your 16.5 corrupted 8 mod maps and then running them, you won't be able to chisel them. So chiseled perfection will be useless. So you can drop that point and put that somewhere else if you want. I also find that invasive adversaries is kind of a whatever point. It's something you can drop as well. I just threw it in because I kind of had a leftover point here in this setup. And something you can run is Singular Focus. I really like it. There are kind of a couple of ways to do this. You can drop the set of nodes up here that come up to Explorative Carapaces, which does help with finding a lot more risk Scarabs, which are very profitable. You know, they're worth a lot. They're like 24 chaos or something a piece right now. So you can drop those 3 points, and then there you go. That'll be 3 points to come down here and take Singular Focus. Or you could just say, like, I'll drop one of my higher tier map chance nodes and invasive adversaries and potentially chiseled perfection if you're not able to, you know, if you're running corrupted maps. Like, that can also do it. But at least for my experience, I wanted to run Singular Focus. I'm really trying to specifically target Farm Dunes and Defiled Cathedral. You know, your mileage is going to vary whether you want random maps or you want a specific map. It's kind of up to you, but adjust accordingly. Now, one noteworthy thing here is that I am not bothering with taking Trapping Carapaces, and the reason for this is just like anecdotal experience. It's obviously very good to get the Containment Scarabs. The problem is that all the rest of the Ambush Scarabs are very low value. I have mountains of all of the rest of the Ambush Scarabs, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and it's not that I wouldn't say no to more Ambush Scarabs. But I feel like the Cartography Scarabs of Risk are a way more consistent moneymaker. Like, I think Cartography Scarabs of Risk are like 24 chaos each, and Ambush Scarab of Containment is like 290. So it's like 12, 13 times more valuable than Risk Scarabs, and I feel like Risk Scarabs are like 50 times more common. So I think they're just a much better gamble in terms of your like point allocation here. You know, you don't have to take amplified artifacts, but I do feel like it interacts pretty well with Bismuth. you know, it's kind of up to you. I think that this is like a very small set of differences between all of these different points you can shuffle around. Ultimately, I didn't really think it mattered all that much. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to Scarabs. We have 3 Scarabs that I think are pretty much mandatory for this setup. Obviously, you can't get Corrupted 8 mod maps to drop without Cartography Scarab of Corruption, so that's mandatory. Cartography Scarab of Escalation is going to give you at least 80% increased maps found in the area, so that's also completely mandatory. And then we do want these to drop with Delirium layers. That's really important here. Like, I have mountains of non-Delirious Corrupted 8 mod maps. I don't need any more of those. I specifically want them to drop Delirious because Delirium orbs are expensive as hell right now, and this Scarab is super cheap. Like, I bet it's worth less than a chaos. So, you know, by comparison, if we look up like Delirium orbs, let's just take a look. 40 chaos apiece. Damn. So yeah, we're saving ourselves massive amounts of money by just not having to spend Delirium orbs on the tier 17s to drop if we do this in T16.5s. And then if we are trying to farm Corrupted 8 mod tier 16.5s, you can't put a Delirium orb on them. So obviously this is like mandatory for being able to get that extra layer of juicing for any of the really high level strategies that are going on. Sometimes you can get lucky out of this too. It isn't just 20% Delirious, it's just a random amount of Delirium orbs that are applied, so it's possible to get 100% Delirious out of the deal. Like, that's a pretty nice map, I gotta say. I don't love the Drowning orbs there, but that's gonna be a pretty juicy one. Then we really have 2 options for our final set of Scarabs. We can do Cartography Scarabs of Risk. This has great synergy with Escalation. This is going to push you up to 12 modifiers on your map, so 120% increased maps found in the area. It's also going to give you a bunch more quantity and pack size out of those 4 extra modifiers that are being added in, so it's going to be really good. The downside is, of course, the cost of Risk. They're not cheap. They're like 20, I guess they're down to 23 or so. Chaos apiece, which is really not very cheap, or you can do Monstrous Lineage if you want to keep it super cheap. So in my case, I didn't care about the cost. I was just simply thinking, how can I get as many maps as quickly as I possibly can? And obviously, Risk Scarabs are better than the cheapo Scarabs for that. They're also better for like farming stuff. Like, that's why I have this Calandra Touch in here. I got this randomly while doing this strategy. It worked out pretty well for me. Felt pretty happy about that. And so that's kind of it for Scarabs. So as for the map device, I think you really want to run Settlers. I think it is worth it to try and fish for as many Bismuth nodes as possible, as many opportunities for Bismuth as possible. I played around with Domination in the past in this kind of strategy. You can run Shrines. It'll add 3 Shrines as opposed to just 1 ore deposit, but I really do like the Settlers mechanics as well. So I actually like to do them when I find them in the map rather than just simply like seeing a Bismuth node and hitting it. You can skip all the Settlers mechanics if you want, but I prefer not to. I do think they are fun. So for me, they're like all positive. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the maps that I'm running. So when you're starting out, you could just do this in like whatever. You can just do it in like regular rolled Alkid maps, but it's going to be pretty bad. The same kind of goes with like basic Corrupted 8 mod maps. They're definitely going to be weaker. You know, I think doing this in tier 16.5 maps that are maybe like corrupted and have like more maps modifiers is kind of a great starting point. It's actually kind of the end point as well. Like, I'm going to wind up going through this whole tab and looking for maps like this one that are corrupted. They have a great more maps modifier and quantity and pack size, but they don't have any more currency or any more Scarabs on them. These are what I'm going to be looking for ultimately to run as like my ultimate goal. The kind of in-between play is, I think, to run tier 17 maps themselves, just like tier 17 maps with good more maps modifiers on them. Like, this one's okay, 50% more maps is not bad, but it has a really high more currency modifier on it, so I could run it with this strategy, could be fun. I'll probably wind up saving this one for some other strategy that's going to take advantage of that more currency modifier being super high. But a map like this one with 100% more maps, this is perfect for this strategy. This one as well with 60% more maps, and then the more Scarabs and more currency mods are kind of low. This one's also pretty great. I think a big advantage of this strategy is that it does cause the tier 17s to drop to be like pre-orbed, so it really cuts that cost. Like, if I were to roll this map this way on its own, you know, it's a Sanctuary map, so it's over half a Divine, and then 3 Deli Orbs is going to put me at like, you know, like 2/3 of a Divine there, right? So this is over a Divine to set up this map, and just by having the built-in delusions, that's saving me like 120 chaos on this map, which is really, really great. So yeah, ultimately I think in terms of the maps, you can do whatever map you like. In terms of map choice, I think I'm pretty much locked in on Dunes and Defiled Cathedral for the rest of the league, I think. I know some people really like Lighthouse. That's a popular one to run right now for some strategies, so that's a great one to target. But Dunes is the one that I'm doing. It's always popular. It's always good. So I am running Singular Focus, and because I'm running Singular Focus, I do like to favorite like 11 of my favorite slots on the map that I'm really trying to farm, and then one on the alternate one. I didn't change this for when I went into tier 17s. I didn't really care. You know, if I were to do this again, I probably would just have 12 favorited nodes all on Dunes and do nothing but tier 17s for the whole strategy and see like exactly how it came out. But this was just kind of something I threw together and found like this really, really works well for finding lots of maps. I had a tier 17 map in which I found, I think, 57 or 58 maps. So, you know, pretty good. I also was doing like a weird mix of tier 17s as well. I wasn't just doing my usual just straight Fortress. I was doing like Abomination and Sanctuary and Ziggurat and stuff, just kind of burning through some old stockpile. And, you know, I got some like Reality and Devouring fragments out of the deal, so that ain't bad. Like, I definitely, not that I'm going to sell all of this, but if I were to somehow sell all of this and, you know, added up all the profit that I made throughout the process of doing this, this was definitely over 45 divines an hour. Even if I didn't sell any of the maps, I was still making probably like 15 divines an hour between currency drops and like, you know, fragment drops from bosses and stuff, which is not bad considering that I'm mainly focusing on maps and then excluding that from the end result. So ultimately, just before I wrap up here, I do think doing this strategy in like very nice, juicy tier 16.5s is going to be the best approach. I think that is going to be better than doing it in tier 17s, but tier 17s, you're able to roll. And you kind of just want to take the maps that have good more maps modifiers on them and run those as this strategy. And then all of the other stuff that like, let me see if I could find a nice one. This is a perfect example, right? This is one that is corrupted, 8 mods, Delirious. It's got a pretty good more currency modifier on it. I wouldn't want to run this for farming more maps, but I would want to run this for other strategies. And so you're kind of bouncing back and forth. You'll do a map like this one for farming currency, some sort of currency farming strategy, and then you'll have this map, terrible for a currency farming strategy. It doesn't have a more currency node on it at all, or bonus on it at all, but it has 100% more maps. Perfect map for running this map farming strategy on, and so you just kind of bounce back and forth between the two. So that's 8 mod tier 16.5 map farming. It's a really good strategy, really fun and fast and effective. I think there's a lot of room to adapt the skeleton of this strategy into other farm strats as well, and I'm probably going to try to do that soon. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord so you can say hello to me and Sunset if you haven't already. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.